Namaskar, hello to everybody. Welcome to this session on man management. This session, I would like to inform a little background of man management, and then we'll take it up. Invoking the blessings of the Lord, I would share this journey with you all. It was when MBA session started in our college. Bhagawan, our master, he gave us this concept of management in his talks. In fact, he took the classes, and the best part was that he not only covered the whole gamut of management, but he was the one who introduced this concept of man management as the most important aspect in in the management. And the way he spiritualized the whole management and the various facets of it was something worth admiring, imbibing, and learning from. Today, I'm going to just make an attempt to share with you all an introduction to that journey. I'd like to just share with you what is this concept of man management and how did it evolve and what all it constitute. I propose to do that in a couple of series, depending on your interest and depending on how much we cover in each session. Let's start this journey with little understanding on what is this management that we're talking about. In in the concept of man management, I want to just give you a little bit of oversight that how everything in life, whatever we do, is basically our spiritual journey to find our core self, to know who we are, and to understand what is the purpose of our life. So, in that journey, whatever we do, whatever we are engaged in, is all focused on towards that purpose, that goal. So, here today, we are going to look at how the management or anything to do with the business environment, what we call business, can be spiritualized and is a journey in itself for self discovery and self actualization. So, just an overview now to look at what is business from that perspective. In the market called the world, the mind is the manager. Now, if you have to take this journey up, these sentences are very important for us to really look at it and understand them. In the market called the world, the mind is the manager. The heart is the leader. Between one thing and another, there is space that we also call as distance. And between one event and another, there is time. And what takes place between the two is karma, which we call as action or business. Now, in this, if you really, this sentence I admire always because this actually summarizes the whole approach towards business. It summarizes how we have to look at life and how we should be able to understand what is happening to us. Now, look at, he calls this whole world as a market. See, we breathe out, we breathe in. So we are doing some kind of an activity. And in this activity, there's a heart which guides us, which prompts us. And that should lead always. See, mind is our commander, which works, but mind should also be led by heart. And the whole business is because there is separation, there is distance. And what is that distance? It's from one thing to another. So any concept of space, distance is duality, is separation. So we understand that if we have to have if we have duality, then we have distance. And to measure that distance is the time. So time per se is a concept which arises because there is duality. If duality is not there, the concept of time itself won't be there. Probably that is why we even say God is time as well as He's beyond time. He's Kalaya Nama, Kala Kalaya Nama, Kala Titaya Nama. So He covers all the time, but He's beyond it. Why? Because for Him there is no separation. So when there is separation, there is time. The separation itself is called distance. So the measure where I am and where I should be, this gap, the moment I realize there is a gap between me and anything else, there is distance. And that's how the time comes into place. And then whatever happens in between me and that distance, in that distance, becomes our karma. So if I look at this whole business concept from that perspective, the whole business becomes my journey of my life, becomes an understanding of how one should look at life and how one has to understand that what is the distance, what is the time, what am I managing. So when I say I'm managing time or I'm managing my schedule, is basically I'm managing myself. Well, that aspect we'll look at it in time management series, but the beauty of this, the whole concept is it guides us in one go, that mind has to be our manager who works and executes, but heart has to lead it. Very important. So mind manages, but heart leads it. Towards what? Towards karma, by keeping in mind the distance and the time which we need to manage. Period. So this is the whole gamut of business. Now in this, now this concept we'll take it into every aspect of the business world. Now to understand business, Master said it very beautifully. He said all that what you have to learn is actually imbibed in these 7 letters of manager. Whatever we have to learn, anything which we have to cover is in this 7 letters. As they say, there are 5 M's, and the most important M is the man. Now, today the terminologies are changing. So when I say man, please don't understand it from a orientation of that I'm avoiding women or ladies. It's a very generic term which we use, which covers everything. So please take it from that spirit. So manager is the letter 7 letters in this, which covers the whole gamut. So we will look at it one by one and understand what it entails and how to approach each one of them. The first is M for mind of man. Now, this concept is very simple, but very, very important. I would say the first letter itself actually hits it and conveys how one has to conduct. Very important to realize that we are human beings, and that is the first and foremost thing which we must accept and understand. And not only we are human beings, so we have to remind ourselves in each step that I have a mind of human, a mind of man, and not of animal. These two sides of the same coin need to be reminded, need to be analyzed all the time. So it's not enough to say that I am a human being. In our journey, we must also remind that we are not animals. And unless and until we do both of these, we will never be able to achieve heights. something will pull us back. It is always important, like when we tell our children also, children, don't do that. It's in half sentence. We have to also give why and what they should do. So if don't do that, we have to also say do this and explain why. So in the smaller times, you may just have to say, don't do this, do this. But as they grow up, why element comes in. But very important that both aspects need to be told. That's why the master would always insist that when you say eyes, look what is good, he would also add and say, don't look what is not good for you. So both aspects have to understand, and that is where the mind of man is very important to understand, that we have a mind of humans and not of animals. Hence, we have to promote what is humanistic, what is divine, and not what is animalistic and what is devilish. So this aspect is important. So the next question obviously comes, how do we identify what is an animal mind and what is a human mind? How do we understand these two? So in a very simple format, he explains it that selfish thoughts like my problem is mine and his problem is his, that is an animal way of looking at life. So animalistic vision is very personalized, narrow, self-oriented. So when we have these kind of thoughts that I should take care of myself, if I'm happy, if I'm fine, that's all good. Neighbors, don't worry. Society, don't interfere. See, that becomes a restrictive animalistic thought. So what is divine then? What is humanistic? Feeling for others in the same way as you would suffer for yourself. Now that is important, because unless and until we start this process of oneness, of feeling that I am no different from anybody, what I see is a reflection and a resound of mine. What I experience in this whole world is my own projection. And the undercurrent of that starting point is to realize that we must feel for others in the same way as you would suffer for yourself. So, like we say in casual terms that, you know, can you get into my shoes? Can you get into others' shoes to understand what is happening with them? And that is actually a starting point of being a human or having a human mind. So this is the very basic understanding of mind of man. So once we understand this, and then the next, the flavor of mind of man increases when we want to understand it further. How do we utilize this mind of man in our business environment? So, like we have authorities, we want something in life. So, authority to be used in relation to work and not towards the individual that were working with us. So, again, mind of man is also very helpful if you keep contemplating on it, and it also allows you to evaluate, or to, I would say, it is a self introspection and self check every second of life, in which you keep checking that, have I conducted in a manner as a human being, a worthy human being or not? Have I thought from the mind of man, or have I thought from the mind of animal? See, this is a very beautiful distinction. If any business decisions I take, or any interactions I do, I deal with people. And if you look at any business for that matter, however automated the business could be, however technology based it could be, but undercurrent is you are doing it for human beings and you are doing to serve human beings. So it is done by humans for the humans, natural. And hence, mind of man is very important, because while acting, while serving, while conducting, we should not slip down to the mind of animal. And that is where the whole confusion and whole discrepancies start, because we start dealing from a different tangent altogether. Because then we do not think broad, we think narrow. And that is where the selfishness and everything starts off. The greed plays its tricks. So the first and the foremost thing which is explained here in the management concept is mind of man. One must carry this always, and it's not a event that you do it on one day and then you think it's all done. It's a continuous journey that we need to do every second of our life. Any situation arising, let us contemplate on it. Am I dealing from the mind of man, or am I dealing from the mind of animals? We are we will be lucky and fortunate if we can jump up to divine, but let us pray we don't go into the devilish mind, in which there is nothing except, ruthless interest and passion for gratification of senses. So that becomes your mind of man. Second, ma, a becomes awareness of atma. Now I have used the terminology straight away, but atma can be understood as spirit, as the energy, as the cosmic energy which is flowing through each one of us, and everything is same. So it's the current, it's that energy that we are talking about, and being aware of it is the most important element. Now what do I mean by awareness of atma? Now most of us would agree, I don't want to, even though I know all of you may agree, but still it's better to provide that, the option. So most of us would agree that, we have an energy, and that energy, some people call it atma or cosmic energy, or power, or whatever you want to call it, the spirit. Now that is a common factor. That is the same energy. It's like an air in the balloon, and outside the balloon is same. So this awareness, that energy which is regulating me, this my little self, this my little being, is the same energy which pervades the whole cosmos. This is the one concept which is, I would think that it is a very crucial in progressing, in developing, in actually expanding our business also as a spiritual activity. And how I will try to go through that journey. See, we talk about serving everybody, right? When anybody you talk about any business, what are you into? So, we may say I'm manufacturing of cars, or I am in a hotel industry, or I am production of furnitures. So we can talk about many business styles. But if you look at it undercurrent, all of us, what we are doing is actually creating an opportunity to serve the end result, right? The audience. I want to provide you a furniture because I want to serve you. It's a serving model. But in serving, whatever is needed is created. The act of creation we call business. So business actually is service. If you look at it from a very objective manner, it is a concept of service. That is why they always have this term also, the customer is the king and all. Why? Because a customer who is representation of receiving my service, who do you serve? You serve the almighty, you serve the master. Hence the whole concept is that you have to serve, correct? Now service is an element. How do you serve the best? If I know X is my relative, X is my connected to me, then my serving attitude will become purer, become much better, because I know I love him, I belong to him, he belongs to me, and there is a kind of a bond. But if I don't have any contact, any relationship, and I am expected to help you, I will do it as a very courteous and a very humanistic manner and say, okay, let me help this person out. But can there be a genuineness or an excitement in serving? Because there is a distance. So the best service, if you want to be like best in that, the more and more we realize that there is no distance, there is no separation, there is no, like he's not a distant person from me, then we like to serve him better. If I know the product which I'm making is going to my kid, suppose a mom is preparing food and she's feeding her own child, then obviously she will see to it that she makes the best of it. But suppose a chef who's cooking but has got no relationship except for he gets his remuneration, then the interest with which he will make may deviate from time to time, from mood to mood. Obviously, to prove himself, he'll like to put the best foot forward. But at the same time, that service element, that full accomplishment or fulfillment won't be there unless you start feeling oneness. And this oneness can come from this concept of awareness of Atma. The more and more I realize that what is in me is in others, and we all are connected because we have the same source from where we come. So we may look different, we may talk different, but we are from the same source. And the moment we have this kind of realization more and more, then we become better and better in our business dealings. Our product qualities would increase, improve, our services would improve, our relationships would improve, our employee satisfaction would improve, our customer satisfaction would improve. Everything will happen if only we learn how to enhance this awareness of the spirit, awareness of cosmic energy, awareness of oneness. And this is a very beautiful example to practice unity in diversity. Now, if you look at it, the whole awareness that everything is that spirit, that is what Atma is. And Atma is awareness. So there's no difference. And that is the reason why this is a very important aspect. And I said unity in diversity. Now, unity in diversity is a very beautiful concept, but it stems from the awareness of Atma. Now, why do we need this? For this reason only. Now, even if I have to serve outside my geographical boundaries, now, even if I go international with my business, this concept will help me to relate to that audience properly. It will understand that even if they have a different culture, how do I appreciate that culture? How do I understand them? And then work towards it. So the oneness concept is a phenomenal concept to bring in equilibrium, satisfaction, and fulfillment in the organizational structures. So in business, I found this concept to be very helpful in building team, in creating a cohesive environment, in improving productivity and everything. So let us look at these two concepts, and they are phenomenal from that point of view: mind of man and awareness of the spirit or Atma. Now, awareness of Atma takes us to another spin. It also, because now when we are talking about our spirit, obviously the spirit is entangled in our being. We are intertwined with that concept of being. I am the body also. I can't help it. I have this, my first introduction to myself is this being, is this body. This is what gives me an identity to start my journey from. Before I tell what is inside, I need to know what is outside. So this is a very beautiful concept. So here also, we tend to understand and learn what is this being, and how did this being come about, and what all it entails. Now, if you look at it, that cosmic energy, as we understand from there's a slight story of creation here, which gets into it, and to understand how this whole thing started off, we believe that the cosmic, that energy, it's like a love factor which vibrates, and through the vibrations there is radiation, and that happens in creation. And this radiation and creation, let's call it movement. So we have vibration and movements. Let me make the screen bigger so we can see it better. So vibration and movements, that leads to sound. This is the first thing which happens in our creation. Now, this is what we are also made up of, but it is nice to understand the whole cosmic journey so that we get a little perspective about how to appreciate our own existence. So from that vibration and movement, what we get is the first manifestation is of sound. In scientific terminologies, they call it Big Bang. In in our Eastern and spiritual connotation, we call it Om. So the first sound, that pranava, that primordial sound, is manifestation of that movement of the being, of that cosmic energy. And this sound leads to what we call sky. So what you see as a sky is nothing but the sound in much more manifested form. So if you look at it, vibrations, you can't, sometimes you can't even feel it, but then comes sound. You can start hearing it. There is a kind of manifestation, there is little bit more grosser. Then comes the sky element. Now that's how the manifestations have happened. And if you look at what we see as a space, is nothing but the sound, but in more manifested manner. Now, this is also a very important element to understand, because today the scientists are recording, like they, I don't know how they do it, but I have read that in the space they can record sounds, a few thousand years old sounds they can record. They are even trying to record sounds from Mahabharata period. So there are technologies which they're able to even tap into it, which is a physical manifestation of how do you record it. Like today we understand that we have all the energies around us. There are so many radio waves and everything around us which we can't see, we can't feel. But if only we have a small little instrument called a radio and you tune it in, you can immediately manufacture that, oh my god, there are so many channels, so many frequencies around us. So just because we can't see, we can't feel it, it doesn't mean they don't exist. And that frequency which is surrounding us is actually sky or space. And so we can easily understand that the cosmic space which you are looking at is nothing but that manifested sound, which has which has become bit manifestation more, and we look at it and call it space. So that is how the space has come into picture. So basically space is nothing but a radio sound waves, you can put it like that. So it's a waves there which we can't feel, we can't understand, but it is there, and there are means to find it out. Then from sky came wind. So as the vibrations increase, the next manifestation which automatically happens is of air, the wind. And now we can start feeling it. It's much more grosser manifestation than the previous one. And from wind comes fire. And from fire comes water. And from water, we have earth. And this vibration continues. And that is how the creation continues. Now, if you look at it, these are the same elements which are in us also. And if you like, I'm sure you can even search it on the internet, and you will find a lot of similarities and informations around, which will explain to all of us that how all of these elements are within us. Like I was reading somewhere also that they say, if you collect all the beings of this planet and remove the empty space and put them together, it will be equivalent that their physical gross element will be equal to one cube, a sugar cube. So imagine how much of empty space is lying everywhere. We are also a high frequency vibration of energy which manifests and looks like a human body, a very gross, which we can't penetrate through. But actually we are nothing but a very, very fine energy dots which are running, and we can walk through each other. So now that's a concept. But when I understand it from the creation point of view, I realize that yes, the earth element is one of the elements of the whole manifestation. So this whole body is nothing but earth. That's why maybe poetically many people explain the body to be like a mud. And they say when you die, you merge back in mud. When you're alive, you look like different. So we have an element of sound, sky, wind, fire, and earth, water, everything in us. and different proportions. And that proportion is nothing but a grosser manifestation of the previous. And that is how this whole cycle starts. Now, there's another interesting element to it, is to find out what are the elements, how they manifest. Now, look at it. The sky has one element called sound. And when this sky becomes air, when the air wind comes, the wind has two manifestation of attributes. Air can be heard and it can be touched. You can feel it. So from sound we get sound and touch. Now fire, you add another element. So I don't have time, the opportunity to quiz you for that, but I'm sure most of you would know it. It is the third element which enters here is the form. You can start seeing the air, fire quality. So the fire gets a form also. It has a sound, it has touch, and it has form. And when it becomes water, when the manifestation of water happens, then another fourth element, attribute, gets added into the element. And that attribute is of taste. So you have sound, touch, form, and taste. And when it comes to the fifth, that is earth, the smell gets added onto it. So you can see how the whole attributes also gets added on, and it becomes more and more grosser and formal. So you can see how heavier it becomes. And the higher, if you go to the source, it becomes lighter and lighter and becomes finer and finer. So that is how this creation keeps jumping. So when you see the manifestation, it's very easy to understand. If there is fire, there has to be air, because without air, fire cannot exist. And where there is fire, water will manifest, because water is a natural output of it. And the beauty of this is the air, which is the source of fire, is also the reason for extinguishing it. So what gives birth also consumes it. So water, which gives birth to earth, can also consume it. So that is how the beautiful chain of life continues. And this also teaches us another very beautiful lesson, that if you look at it, now from here, you have the manifestations coming up. So earth came and then started the other elements, when all these five got together, and then you had those amoebas and plants and animals, and ultimately human beings came into existence. So the human was the last, I would say, last pearl into the necklace, which completed the cycle. Now, why I say completed is because that human, this human being has that element or that attribute which is so unique, which allows us to understand our source and return back to it. And hence it completes the cycle. None of the other created beings have that option to return back. They can only continue to live as per their attributes in a reactive manner. Only humans have the ability to reverse, to know the source and go back to it. And that is why they say the human birth is the most unique and rare, because that is the only thing which kicks in, which understands and allows us to connect the dots and go back to the source. So that is one more lesson we learn from this whole cycle. And then another humility we can learn from here is that, what comes after is dependent on the previous. So man, which has come at the end of the series, depends on everything before him. So we depend on animals, plants, and earth, water, air, fire, everything. But animals don't depend on us. So if humans disappear from the planet, nothing else will happen to this creation. It will continue in the same way, because they don't need humans to survive. But humans require everything to survive. Similarly, animals don't need humans to survive, but they do need plants and fire and water, everything to survive. Similarly, this is a chain to understand that what comes requires the previous elements to survive. So we have to be also humble about it, that as a human being, we are dependent on the whole creation. The creation is not dependent on us. And in this journey, the beauty is that we have the ability to take the creation back to its source. And that is our contribution into the cycle. Otherwise, we are wasting this golden opportunity. And that is the beautiful lesson that I learned from this whole exercise, to understand what is this cosmic awareness of spirit and why do I need it. Now, when I understand these elements, where everybody comes from, then my dealing would change. The way I will interact with people would change, because then I understand where they are coming from, what is their prominent elements, what are those elements and sources. Like there are many sciences which will tell you about your diseases come from any fluctuation in these five elements. There is no time for all of that, but if you study it, you will know that all our physical problems also, emotional problems also, arise from the deviation, imbalance of these five elements. So if only we know how to balance these, because they are all in our being, and this is the same thing which is in our creation. Hence, it is very important for us to understand how to balance these things, because once we learn this small trick of balancing these equations, that itself would enhance us and give us a better lifestyle. Today, when people are talking about iterations, people leaving the company, people taking too many leaves, and there is so much of health issues around, we are not able to understand how to rectify it. By going to gym and all is good, but having a better lifestyle is more important. How do we conduct ourselves? And that is the key which people are missing out in most places. People, we have to realize that prevention, when we talk about prevention is better than cure, the prevention element is first awareness of who we are, and then only I can go and help others. If I don't know who I am, then how can I assist and create an work environment which will give fulfillment to my people? Okay, so that is how we look at the elements of these attributes. Now here, just to take it a step little bit more, he gave us a very beautiful analogy. There are so many things I'm trying to summarize and put it together, but there is an element which he gave us, that look at it as example. Our being is made up of, so many, from a chemical perspective. If you look at chemistry side of it, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, there are so many things which are involved in this. Now the source of all of this, mostly, like look at hydrogen, sun. Now he explained it very beautifully, that there are around 3000 units of sun, uh, units of, sun, hydrogen, around earth. But look at the human element, we are able to only extract 1 unit of that hydrogen for our use. And that 1 unit is responsible to provide us with all of these, what we are looking at, our life, our energy, our heat, and everything is 1 unit. Imagine if we can learn together, because this cannot be done by a single person or a single country, it has to be done together. If only we learn to tap 1 more unit of hydrogen, imagine the whole international world problem of energy will be solved. Now look at it how he explains it. The hydrogen turns into carbon, oil, crude oil, refined oil, kerosene, petrol, and it turns into gas. So this is the same thing, like as I was telling you, that the spirit, the concept of spirit, when we talked, how it changes the form. If somebody has a question about it, like how can the same energy become earth? Now look at the hydrogen, which is one, which is like a, which you can't even touch. It's like a gas. But look at what happens to that energy, hydrogen energy. When you keep refining it, it changes its form. And this is the same way what happens to us also. The creation is like that. So the same element changes its form through some process. So the process is the same in the creation. So that is what we can learn from all of this, that look how unity can be understood, how we can understand the concept of awareness of being Atma, that awareness concept is that the same unmanifested takes manifestation, and how it changes as it grows through the process, through the vibration or whatever you want to call it, and it changes different forms. So that is another beautiful way of understanding that how in life everything is actually coming from the same source. So that is also will help us to understand that how we all are one, how everything is from the same source. Since we are coming to the close of time, but let me look at some questions if there is any. Do change in the elements cause change in behavior? If yes, what practices should we do in order to balance the elements? Yes, of course, they would, because the element of fire, the element of water, they also have their attributes. And that is why they say, that this is another science altogether. Mostly they are dealt in Ayurvedic sciences. I'm not an Ayurvedic practitioner or expert in that. I, I just love it and I learn it. But that in a detail, Ayurveda can teach us better. But just to answer your thought, that yes, these elements do affect our behavior. Let me give you an example. Say an element of water. Water is connected with emotions. Okay. And water, if you look at it, on a full moon night, and if you see that there is always a big waves in the ocean, and the element of mind is also same as the moon, so it impacts the body. And if our water element is not balanced, then we will tend to remain a little touchy emotions, and will always act in a very irritated manner. So that is an influence I'm talking to you. So this is how what you're saying, yes, the influence is there. So if there's an imbalance, it will reflect as an health source. So homeopath is depend totally based on that concept. In fact, many things are connected. All of these are connected elements. How do we balance them? First, if you understand ourselves, like what is right for me, so that is where you come into the food categories of your discipline of life habits. So there are so many factors which come into play. Now from the business perspective, obviously we also look at the timings of work. If you make people work over, then providing them with the health and hygiene. So there are so many other elements which can be guided through that. And of course, as you have pointed out, we can look at deeply about each aspect and also try to help people. Okay. Bhuta siddhi. Udayo, yes, there is something, but I am not competent to speak on that. So yes, but if as long as we all can understand the concept, that will be a great help for each other, because then now we can explore ourselves to understand better who we are and what we are trying to do. So that is where this whole management concept, I love it, because he didn't teach management from a very commercial or a abstract manner, like straight commercial manner. He taught it from a very beautiful concept of life. And if we look at it, the whole thing, the way we approach life, the way we are approaching business will become much beautiful, much different and fulfilling. And that is what I hope to provide you here with. So as I was telling you, I don't mind doing this as a series for us to deal with each aspect properly. And if there are questions like you're asking me, maybe if you can share some questions and what more you want to learn from here, whatever he has taught, I would be happy to share. And I welcome others who feel they can contribute in this journey. More than welcome. And it's my pleasure that I'm able to put it together for all of you. So I don't claim to be an authority in man management, but it's a joy that whatever I am practicing and whatever I'm able to put together in my life as a consultant and sharing with people and trying to help organizations and individuals in that direction, I'm just putting it together so that others can also learn that this is the same technique for fulfillment. So, as long as we treat business as a separate activity than your life, you will never find fulfillment in a real sense. So, whatever we do in life is important that we look at it from a holistic manner. We look at it from a personal journey as a fulfillment exercise. And then only you will start appreciating whatever is happening around us. So, business is one of the best things. I have personally experienced business in sales, ethics in sales, spirituality in sales is an amazing thing. And why I use the word sale is because I'm a salesman. I was a very active salesperson. I've done marketing most of my life. But I realized that the moment I started the spiritualization of element, uh, my whole approach towards sales changed. My grosses are high, but obviously I changed my interest for whatever reasons, and now I'm doing this. But the fact of the matter is, I have enjoyed success even in that format, and not only in one conditions. Like people may say that okay, you have lived in one area. No, I have worked in India, I have worked in Canada, I have worked in Indonesia, Trinidad. So God's grace, I have traveled, and I've seen that that works in everywhere. So if as long as we have these concepts clear in ourselves, we understand the impact, the purpose of these concepts in our life, and then we look at how we implement it, how these gets implemented. So all the human relationships, all the HR businesses can be summarized in these two elements. But there are others. You can imagine right now, out of seven, we have only touched two today: mind of man and awareness of spirit or Atma. So when you get the whole seven together, you can see it in more depth to understand that how each element, and just to give you a little bird's eye view, he has discussed about taxation, about accounting, about international marketing, about PR, sales, everything, communications. So there is so much that can be touched through that actually I realize that the basic element of spirituality can go into any sphere of life, and the man management is one of the best ways to look at this. So I'll be happy. I would only request all of you that please come forward and share your questions. You can do it here. When you watch it on the YouTube, you can even put a comment there. You can even email us at abhi@valuesinaction.net. So there are many ways you can reach me. And please leave your comment, leave your suggestions, and give me some ideas as to what else you want to hear, and how do you want this program to be improved upon. I would be happy to consider them. And obviously, I'm more interested in sharing whatever little I can in this topic. And if you have a real life scenarios that you would like to discuss, I would certainly love that too. And if any one of you would like to come on as a live participant to discuss certain concepts, that also will be much welcome. So I would suggest that we will do this. I'm going to continue that, but I don't want to rush it. That is the only thing I feel. So today we'll only look at these two concepts: mind of man and awareness of Atma. So if you have any questions on this, please feel free to share and let me know. And I will just recap these two concepts quickly. So, manager, seven-letter word. is kind of a summation of the whole concept. First was mind of man, which in brief stresses that we should always be aware that we have a mind of man and not of animal. What does that mean? Is that whatever we do, whatever we act, we must always recheck, revalidate that we are coming from a humanistic approach and not from an animalistic point. What does that mean? In simple words, when we think of only ourselves, when our vision, our approach is narrow, is very selfish, that I want to make money, I want to just have my benefit, that becomes an animalistic approach to business. But when I think of others, let me serve so many people, then obviously you will also make money. So, money is an output which will happen irrespective of whether you work for others or for yourself. But the beauty of working is when you work for others as a service, then what you get is a spiritualization of business. So, that is the mind of man. So, unless and until we learn that and we keep reminding ourselves and we keep working through that, we will never be able to find fulfillment. So, mind of animal and mind of man. Mind of animal also makes you instinctive, it makes you reactive, it doesn't allow you to pause and think. Whereas mind of man will make you think, will decide properly, will look at all the options. If you have any problem in the organization, for example, if you think why people are not giving me full output, why people have to be, always motivated or talked about, and why do we need all of that pressure for getting them work done, then again the animalistic mind will keep looking at in terms of, like a horse you have, you keep hitting the horse, you feed it and hit, you think that the horse will run faster. But a humanistic will be that, okay, he needs some rest, he needs some massage, he needs something. And that motivation will make the horse run faster. It is the dedication, that approach, humanistic approach, which motivates and inspires people to not only give their time but their life also for you. So that is the difference between a humanistic mind and an animalistic mind. And then we looked at the awareness of Atma, or the spirit, or the cosmic energy, whatever you want to call it. This concept is a very beautiful concept to understand that the whole creation, the whole cosmos is a projection of my own self. What I am, I reflect it back. So we are not different. Our source is same, so we are one. Like the concept of fatherhood of God and brotherhood of mankind is basically that to understand that you need the awareness of Atma. We need to understand what is this Atma, what is this cosmic drama, and that is where the spirit element needs to be explored. And to do that, we found we saw that we saw other elements of how the Atmic concept is understood from the concept of creation. And we saw that the same energy, which we call as Atma or as spirit, how it gets manifested as sky, then from there wind, then from fire, then water and earth, how the same thing is manifested in more and more grosser forms, and we have this whole manifested world around us. An example was of hydrogen. When we looked at hydrogen of the earth sun, the same hydrogen takes different forms based on the processes it undergoes, and then ultimately it realizes that it is same nothing but the same gas which it started from. So the cosmic cycle is same as that. So we also can understand that how that same Atmic principle, that supreme energy which is in me, how it gets manifested everywhere, or what is there, how it gets manifested in all of us, and we take shapes. So even though we look different, we act different, we talk differently, we all are the same quality, the same element attributes. So that is also a very beautiful way of understanding life. And that unity in diversity gives you another perspective to approach businesses And we understand that when we are serving people, we are not serving others. We are actually serving our own brethren. They may be from different places, different lands, but they are people. They are people like me and you. And hence, the amount of quality of service that we provide improves. So if I know that I'm manufacturing something for myself, I like to put an additional heart into it. If I know that I'm giving this gift to my beloved, I will put an extra heart in it. So that heart element comes only when I know that the other person who's going to receive it is not different from me. He or she belongs to me. They are part of my family. And imagine this concept in the business environment will start providing amazing quality. The issue of quality will disappear. So that is the beauty of this concepts, that I realize many problems in the world today are existing because we have missed the boat somewhere, we have missed the point somewhere. But if you really look at properly, if you fix these elements together, then you realize that the problems don't even exist. If we work with the mind of man and awareness of Atma, many issues will not even exist in the market. In our school system where we consult, we realize that the concept of bullying, you have you know all these concepts don't even exist in our schools, because what programs are in place, they don't allow those concept of bullying or torturing or bossing over. It doesn't exist. They don't even come up. So the problem which the world is trying to resolve don't exist in this environment. So the moment we learn about spiritualization of our businesses, imagine many of the practices or wrong practices of business won't even exist. So there will not be need for resolving issues. When the employees get happy, they are satisfied. It is not because you send them to gym that they will become healthier. Happiness is not something that you can buy from the market. These elements will make us realize what is our true happiness, how to approach life, how to look at life. And the more and more we do that, many problems will stop even appearing in front of us. So that is the beauty of spiritualizing management, spiritualizing business. So in summary, I would say man management is a very beautiful approach in spiritualizing business. And business is life. Like the first slide, I read it out for you all, a beautifully concept of mind as a manager, heart as the leader, and whatever activities are done is business. See, the concept of time and the concept of distance is another beautiful concept to understand. Just to close that, just to hit on that point again, see, anytime you have duality, there is distance. So distance is, that's why even our saints, when they tell there is no distance, it is very difficult to comprehend. What do you mean there's no distance? I'm here and X is in America. There is distance. I'm here and you are in other part of the world. There is distance. This apparent visible distance is only because I feel they are separated. That's why for them, in one flip, they can tell you what is happening in America or in Europe or wherever. And people can move from one to another without any waste of time. Why? Because for them, this manifested difference is actually a mirage. So one who can look through this mirage has got nothing to travel to, nowhere to go. And that is the beauty. So the moment we talk about distance, that means there is separation. And when we talk about separation and distance, to understand this is time. So the concept of time also arises. Otherwise, there is no need for time, there's no need for distance. So this is a very beautiful thing which I find a emergence of spirituality with the commercial world. And the more and more you explore on it, the whole attitude of working becomes very different. So today, Thank you very much. I think we had good participation, but so I would keep the floor open. If anyone has any suggestions for the next episode, I will continue with these seven. Others are not that big, but still there is a lot of thing to cover, and I would be happy to share. And if anyone has any specific scenarios, questions, please feel free to send, and we will be happy to discuss here. There will be many dilemmas, corporate dilemmas, or business dilemmas, or ethical dilemmas people may face, and if you are willing to share them in animo- you know being anonymous, I would still respect that. And but learning is more important than identifying the person. So I welcome all of you to please join and share. Thank you very much and for this session, and appreciate. Namaskar. Thank you.